Children of a Karen, What Is It Like? Viewers Edition. Story 1. My mom is a semi-Karen. I have plenty of stories of how bad she was, but I'll just list a few. Number 1, I got called out of my room by my mom. I get out and ask mom what she needs. I barely see you, and I want you to spend time with me. Don't you want to spend time with your mommy? I didn't, but I sigh and say, sure, and sat next to her on the couch. She then proceeds to prop her feet on the couch and watch YouTube videos on her phone. Not talking to me, not interacting with me, not even trying to show me what she's watching. Just casually watching videos on her phone while I had put away my phone and earbuds out of respect. I sat next to her basically doing nothing but staring at a wall for a good 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, I get up and tell her that I'm going back to my room. My mom starts saying that I don't want to spend time with her. How could I say and do such a thing? And poor her, despite the fact that she didn't once interact with me since I sat next to her. She then gets ticked off and says, since you don't want to even spend time with me, go to your room. I then get angry that I wasted my time sitting next to her and go into my room. Number 2, I went to the DMV for my driver's license, and the workers didn't call my ticket number for the next person to come up. Mom noticed it after a few people after us started being called, and she decided to call a worker over to tell them that our ticket number didn't get called. To her credit, she started out calmly, at first, as the worker kept explaining to her that sometimes the ticket numbers aren't called, but also on the screen saying who's next via number. She started getting louder and louder, stating, there were people after us, and you called their numbers and not ours. Our numbers should have been called. Our number is yada yada yada, and I didn't hear it. Did you hear it? I told my mom to stop and that we could just get a different number, but she wasn't having it, until the worker said, I'm sorry ma'am, please just grab a new ticket number and we'll call you. Angry, she grabbed a new ticket number and waited until the worker called our ticket number. She seemed happy, but I was embarrassed, especially when it wasn't even for her. Number 3, I get called out of my room by my mom. I get out and she wants me to help her cook and start making rice. So I start off by washing the rice. Mom sees and starts going off about how I'm not washing it correctly, and she needs to show me how, even though I already knew how, and she knows that. She then stops what she's doing and starts showing me how to wash the rice her way. Afterwards, she gives me the rice pot with rice and measured water and tells me to go put it in the rice cooker. I tell her she might as well just finish the job herself since she already did what I was supposed to do. She gets ticked and tells me, it's so far from me and you're closer to it. And by closer, I mean 1 to 2 steps closer to it. I take it from her and put it in the rice cooker. I then stand in the kitchen and wait for what she wanted me to do next. She sees me and goes off that I'm not helping her and that I'm just standing there doing nothing. I reply that I'm waiting for her to tell me what to do. She gets angry and tells me to go to my room because I'm not helping her. I get angry, so I go. At around 3:30 p.m., I come out to go to the bathroom and see that she didn't even start cooking and was just sitting on the couch watching videos. I quietly seethed as I did my business, went back to my room. At around 5:30 p.m., I hear stepdad come home and mom immediately asking him to help her cook. Cue the same thing happening to stepdad, except with chopping meat. He gets sent to their room and she starts cooking. At around 7:30 p.m., food's ready, so I get called out to call everyone else out for food. Everyone says grace, eats, and leaves. The last people at the table were mom, stepdad, and myself. Mom starts going off on the both of us, saying that no one helps her and how alone she is with no help and poor her, etc. Afterwards, she goes to the bathroom and stepdad and I just stare at each other in disbelief. He asks me if I tried helping her, and I said yes, told him what happened to me, and vice versa. He then asks if she's okay. My response, I don't know, your guess is as good as mine. Story 2. My grandmother on my mom's side is Karen, and my grandma on my dad's side is named Karen. Grandma Karen is a sweet, bubbly, kind lady who genuinely cares about you. A true Christian woman who is definitely love thy neighbor and will accept you and love you no matter what. She basically took my mother under her wing when she and my dad got married and became the mother figure my mom deserved. Taught her a lot about plants and some of her own cooking techniques and recipes that have been in her family for generations. Liked my mom enough to even give her her first knife set. She adored and loved my brother and sister, despite not being her biological grandchildren. She sees them as her grandchildren regardless. My Grandma Karen is nice sometimes, can be fun to talk to if it's about anything other than politics. She's a feisty little old lady, and if you disagree with her viewpoints, especially political ones, she will wring you out and just leave you in a pile so you get musty. Unless you're my dad and my uncle, because they once made her lose her mind at my graduation party. Not to mention she doesn't know how to manage her money, and she clearly has a favorite child, and no, it's not my mom. And she doesn't care about me and my siblings as much as she does her favorite child's offspring. Case in point, she gave away a lot of movies and books to my aunt and her kids after our grandpa passed, and despite my siblings having grown up with those books and movies, I only got a singing fish to remember my grandpa by, and it's broken. My Karen grandma is a raving mad conspiracist. She believes in the chemtrail planes, and the TikTok is a Chinese propaganda machine. Not to mention she was very racist, which she had to dial back when my aunt ended up having a mixed kid. Edit, I forgot another thing with my Karen grandma. She took me, my aunt, and her son out to eat, and I was expected to pay for myself, while she paid for my aunt and her kid. Also, my sister was told she couldn't sit with the rest of the family at my great-grandpa's funeral. Not that you aren't family, but... and rattle off some excuse I can't remember. I just know it hurt my sister terribly, and had my mom known, because Mom didn't even know, she'd have sat with her. All of us would have. It got to a point where my sister doesn't even communicate with anyone on that side of the family. I don't blame her. I want to cut ties too. And the screaming, the constant screaming and yelling between my Karen grandma and my aunt's son is just, I hate it. I dissociate so much when I'm around them, but I go around them because I sometimes feel like I have an obligation to my family to spend time with them because they're my family and I love them. It's just so frustrating sometimes. Well, if my Karen grandma wants to play favorites, I'll play favorites too. I can't wait until my Grandma Karen moves back to our hometown. At least I'll have a grandma who actually cares and will spend time with me and not berate me for this, that, and the other. And at least when she moved away, she let me keep some of my favorite toys I played with as a kid. Others went to my other cousins, which is fair, and now my niece and nephew like to play with them. Okay, so this dude has two grandmas named Karen, and they're seemingly polar opposites. But the weird thing to me is that they couldn't come up with a better naming convention for distinguishing these two Karens, other than where they placed the grandma. My guess is the crotchety grandma is like that, in part because you call her Karen Grandma. You couldn't have Grandma Karen and Nana Karen or Meemaw Karen or something cultural like More or Far More, or even Grandma Karen 1 and Grandma Karen A. Story 3. I wouldn't say that my dad is full-on Karen, but he sure goes on a Karen mode, especially when it comes to restaurants or food-related shops. There was one time in which my family and I were driving to Florida for our yearly trip. For dinner, we stopped by an Applebee's in, I can't remember if it was South Carolina or Georgia, and we arrived in the early part of the dinner service, like 4:30 or so. The waitress was very nice to us, and she did her usual part of the job by taking our orders and providing us with the free chips and our drinks. I think what happened was that the chefs in the kitchen didn't realize that dinner service was fast approaching because getting the food out was so slow. It was not even funny. I believe we waited for a good 40 minutes, and food still wasn't even on the table. I'm not going to sit here and use the restaurant getting busy as an excuse, but even when there was just 5 parties in the entire restaurant, I did not see any waiters or waitresses with any food except the free nacho chips. My dad completely lost his cool with the waitress, who, mind you, has done nothing to deserve the backlash in any way. Did we eventually get our food? Yeah, we did, because I'm pretty sure the manager wasn't happy with the fact that the employees in the kitchen were goofing off. However, as soon as we finished our meal, paid, and left the building, my mom flipped her crap out on him for yelling at an innocent college-aged girl like that. My mom can lose her cool sometimes, but she used to work service roles as a teenager and college student, so she knows what it's like for people to flip out on her for things that she has no control over. My sister and I were young teens by this time, and even then we found this to be completely embarrassing. I don't think my dad said any other words the entire night, and imagine having to share a small hotel room with the tension so thick you can cut it with a knife. Edit, when I graduated college, I worked one summer at the Magic Kingdom in Disney Worlds, and for anyone who thinks that children are a pain in the butt when it comes to attractions, you would be greatly mistaken. It's the parents. On Disney property, we don't call moms and dads Karens. We call them Kardashians and Trumps because these special levels of Karens use the excuse of paying thousands of dollars for a Disney vacation to basically make the cast members' jobs even harder. Surprisingly enough, the nicest people we have in the parks are childless adults, children under 13 years old, and families who barely know English but always try to tell me I'm doing a good job. I was actually the favorite of Latin and South American families who visited the park because I was the only white girl at Big Thunder Mountain who spoke any Spanish whatsoever. Story 4. Oh, my stepfather's ex was kind of a Karen. In a way she was. Her name was literally Karen. She's a cheating idiot and used her 7 kids purely for child support. Heck, she tried to get all her kids registered as disabled so she'd get extra support, even though they weren't. Doesn't help with her attitude to her kids. She'd often be negligent to them or just yell at them. Often the older kids would have to look after the younger ones. The bad traits carried on to most of the kids. One of them ended up running away for a few days to her boyfriends. 2 others decided to stay with us. The first one, my favorite step-sibling, left to go back and support to them. And the second left after telling us about some stuff her uncle did. Stuff I technically can't say, less of legal reasons, more privacy. They both left in their first year of college around Christmas. Kind of became a family joke for me and my parents. Happy to say that I'm currently in my first year of college and didn't leave. 2 of the kids that I know of are doing well for themselves, one of which being my favorite stepsister. They've both made an effort to be better and try to get out of there. The rest aren't good. One of them is racist and homophobic. Another has moved in with her boyfriend. The other one that stayed with me is staying at home, ruining their chance at a good life by not going to college at all, and so on. Luckily, I got good parents in the family. My mother's very kind. She can get angry with me, yeah, but I trust her and know that I can rely on her. My stepdad is the more chill one. We don't talk often due to a lack of interest in each other's interests, but I still enjoy talking to him when I do. He's pretty kind, doesn't tend to yell, and lets me know when my mom's in a bad mood. He can be emotional due to family stuff, but he's fairly nice. Oh yeah, I have another brother, a bio half-brother. He's basically cut ties with my mom for no reason. She's never treated him any differently to me, so I personally don't get it. Last we saw him, I was an aunt, and he was begging for money. I haven't seen him in years. I miss the days where we'd play video games together. Story 5. What's the male equivalent of a Karen? Because that's what my dad is. He goes to a restaurant, orders the most expensive thing on the menu, and then complains about it. Like they do it correctly to his instructions, and he still complains. He likes his steak so overdone, it's dry, and he drowns it in steak sauce to make up for it. Every time it's not cooked to a crisp, he complains, but every time it's cooked to a crisp, he still complains. I'm the opposite of him in pretty much every way, and I have to be a doormat or he'll hurt me physically. Every time I have to file a complaint about something, I get so embarrassed I want to disappear because I can't handle standing up for myself. Even then, I filed exactly 2 complaints in my lifetime. One was about a hospital when I almost passed away and no one cared. I was bleeding out all over the place, and I hadn't been seen for 3 hours. I didn't even get stitches. And I filed a complaint after someone made a snide comment about my service dog. I have PTSD, severe anxiety, and I have thoughts of hurting myself because of my upbringing, and my dog is the only reason why I'm not violent. I've hidden so many secrets from him, it's like I'm acting in the worst play ever written. Also, yeah, my dad abused me and screamed at me growing up, to the point where he'd leave bruises on my arms for not doing the dishes his way, even if I did, and make me go to school. Needless to say, long-sleeved t-shirts were a regular part of my wardrobe. He also tells me on a regular basis that he left me because I have autism and he had to escape. Everyone treats me like garbage because they see my last name and assume I'm him, when it couldn't be further from the truth. I've stopped going to doctors, hospitals, restaurants, basically anywhere other than the grocery store or the park, and even at the grocery store, I still get treated like garbage by people who know about my dad. It got to the point where I have to have things delivered to my house because I face persecution if I leave. From what I've seen, the male equivalent of a Karen is a Kevin, although I think that name is chosen solely because it starts with a K and ends with an N. I personally don't think the name Kevin has the same connotation that drums up imagery of entitled middle-aged men. Really, we shouldn't generalize for Karens either, but at least that one caught on initially because there was probably a sizable correlation with middle-aged soccer mom women born in an era where the name Karen was popular, And so inevitably, enough people had a relevant association with someone in their life who fit the mold for the Karen meme, and it gained traction. But also, I looked this up, and apparently the initial spark was from a confrontation in Central Park between a black man and a woman named Amy Cooper. So it's kind of weird to me that the name Amy didn't propagate the same negativity as Karen. Story 6. So my mom is Karen, especially for me. It's completely annoying. I'm constantly accused of abuse, and when I mention that half the stuff she pulls is abuse, she doesn't say anything. I've told her for years that she's passive-aggressive, and she still doesn't understand what that means. She does get upset with waitstaff. I hear she gives them an earful, and I tell her not to. I've been on both sides of the Karen, as a complainant and a server retail worker. Now I know the power of being nice. If I have a problem, I don't let my anger take over. Most people understand when they make a mistake. Some are grateful for bringing it to their attention. People make mistakes, and I've been taught that that's okay sometimes. So people don't deserve to be abused just for a small mistake. My mom made a passive-aggressive comment about how I love to complain to get free stuff, but it's not that. I know what I'm worth, and I'm not afraid to call people out, privately and politely, if they make a mistake. I expect that of other people. I prefer they do so to my face, but going above my head is acceptable too. Just be nice about it. Persuasive letters are legit sometimes, and it gets results. Thank you if you made it to this far. After listening to more stories, I had a thought. Does anyone else have a Karen mom who complains that this generation, by which I assume she means millennials and Gen Z, is overly entitled? This is the hypocrisy I live with. Story 7. Not a child, but I had to be babysat by one. She was so neglectful of my then infant sister and I. Sometimes I got fed, hardly ever given water. My sister got left outside in 120-degree weather out in front of our house. She made me play on an unsafe playground, wooden with cracks everywhere, and was not stable whatsoever. And if I asked for food or water, I'd get screamed at. Her children were her prized possessions, though. I couldn't even breathe around her without getting belittled. We once went out because her kid wanted McDonald's. She ordered a Happy Meal for her daughter and realized the toy wasn't a girly toy, so she threw a fit and was screaming at the poor employee. I have always been sensitive to loud noises, one of my downsides to having Asperger's. Yes, my sister and I are autistic. We didn't know about her yet at the time of this, though, so I was so scared. I told my mom about everything that had been happening, and we never saw her again. Usually I hate confrontation. It's too scary, but I couldn't let my sister get sick or I get hurt because of this crazy lady's behavior and living conditions. I was 8 at the time, was the worst babysitter I ever had. Story 8. Easy to help a worker. I had a suit on and Karen was going nuts at a young girl, 16 or 17. I walked up and said that I, the general manager, told the young girl not to move, and then said, "One more time and you will be fired." Then took my phone out, took a photo of Karen. Then I told her to get out and never come back, and put her photo on the Banned for Life wall. Then I said, "Go now. I'm calling the police if you don't." Karen left. The girl just looked shocked. After Karen left, the girl said, "Who are you?" I told her that I only came in to get some milk on my way home from work, and I hate Karens. I went off and got my milk. When I got to the front to pay for it, the AM stopped me. He told me that he saw it all on the shop spy cam. The AM said it was all good because if she phoned Corp about it, the general manager and the 3 AMs are all females, and she has been nasty to the staff for over a year, and then gave me free milk and a $10 shop card. Story 9. My bio mom is a Mexican Karen, and though she's not one to talk to the manager, she will talk crap about places and expect to get what she wants, always, and is overall narcissistic. Which, given her life, is sad and makes sense, but she refuses to see a therapist or someone instead she'll just info dump and vent to people who work at places to eat regularly. Then when they do the slightest thing wrong, she suddenly takes it hyper-personally and hates them. This is why she hasn't gone back to those places either. Also, she'll go full Karen over the phone, which I sort of feel bad for her, but, she refuses to listen to me ever. Story 10. So yeah, it's not like I'm damaged at all. Yep, now I have to pay for therapy because he was too much of a whiny baby. On the other hand, I'm very nice to service workers and I make them laugh. Also, I'm really funny and I go out of my way to be funny to make other people comfortable. But you won't catch me crying or be sad about anything. My dad will exploit it and make me feel like dirt if I express anything other than a perfectly happy demeanor. I have PTSD and possibly depression from this guy being a total miserable parasite. Story 11. Anyway, so I haven't talked to her in, I don't know, but I've cut off contact until she's seeing a regular therapist. So far, I haven't heard a peep. She also told me, her biological child, she wishes she never had children. Then is surprised when a few to none of us want to keep in contact with her. There's 4 of us. Should also add she's very ableist, which is why she refuses to listen to me. Homophobic, transphobic, racist, etc. She votes Democrat, but that's the extent of it. Otherwise, her actions and beliefs are mostly very right-wing. Please leave your stories in the comments. I'd love to make a video of them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.